All right, guys, so we'll wait a minute or so. Today, I'm going to be covering fat loss myths and certain myths that are prevalent even still in 2025. And a lot of people get these a little bit confused. And it ends up wasting like a lot of their time and effort as well. So hopefully we'll demystify these. I'm just going to cover 10 most common myths that I've seen through 20 years of coaching. Obviously, there's like way more than 10 to consider. But we'll cover 10 of them. And if you guys have any questions on any of them, just let me know, okay? I'm going to just give it 1 second. Let me get these. Kind of haven't done this for 2 weeks and I got a little bit of the settings messed up. Okay, cool. Let's see. Okay, cool. Okay, we should be pretty good. All right, you guys. So we're going to cover 10 fat loss myths today that I've kind of seen over 20 years of coaching already. And it's 2025 and these are still persistent. They're not in any rank order of importance. Kevin, what is going on? I saw a few other people jumped in as well. They're not in any rank order of importance. And let me know if you guys have heard any myths or you're kind of confused about a certain topic. Just bring it up and I'll be happy to cover it as well. But in terms of fat loss, like people struggling with excess weight, which is pretty much like, 85% of Americans at this point are either overweight or obese or above. The first common myth, I would say like the biggest one I constantly hear, and there's a lot of confusion around this, is you actually need to work out to lose weight. Someone else jumped in with a crazy name. I don't know how to pronounce that name, but welcome, Kevin. What is going on? Kevin, if you have any questions, just let me know and I'll be happy to answer them. But one of the most common myths about fat loss is basically like, oh, you have to work out to lose weight. You have to work out and you have to work out hard, etc., etc. And it's not true. You do not have to work out to lose weight at all, okay? That is not true. Working out will for sure help you lose weight, but it's overall, especially when you take like a huge holistic approach to why people become overweight, it's like the least important dimension to focus on. And a lot of people focus a lot of attention on there. And this is evident like whenever you go to a gym. You go to a gym and you see like a bunch of people there and they might actually spend, Carlos is in the house. Good to see you, man. And you might see a lot of people there and they spend a lot of time there. You see the same people maybe year after year and they spend an hour or two. You get there, they're already there, and you leave maybe 2 hours later, they're still there. And year after year after year, they look the same and the most often overweight as well. So working out is like the least important part of the variable. And if working out is all you needed to do to optimize like your health, your metabolic health, your aesthetics, etc., etc., like construction workers will be the Olympians of today, but you can kind of see, although construction workers have maybe 8 to 10 hours of dynamic physical activity per day, most of them are quite overweight, okay? So that's one of the biggest myths is like you need to work out to lose weight. It's not true at all. You do not need to work out to lose weight. Long term, one thing that could kind of help you sustain an aesthetically appealing and lean looking body is basically the only real thing is basically weightlifting. Because that's the only variable that's going to help increase your base metabolic rate. You guys have probably heard that before, that phrase. And in short, like the more muscle you have, the more calories you burn at rest. And also the more ideal like fat to muscle ratio you have, the more aesthetically appealing your physique is going to be. So like the more body fat or the more muscle mass you have in relation to the amount of body fat you have is also going to improve your aesthetics as well and help you metabolically a tremendous amount as well with your metabolic health. Metabolic health being the markers are being the body fat percentage, blood pressure, resting blood glucose level like the A1C, triglycerides, and HDL, okay? So those are important variables to focus on, and especially when your muscle to fat ratio is good as well, your hormonal balance or hormonal health will be more ideal also, although that's a pretty broad conversation. So myth number 1, you need to work out to lose weight. It's not true. You do not need to work out to lose weight at all. Working out maybe burns a total of like 5 or 10% actually 1 to 5% of your total calories per day. There's a lot of other things going on. And again, I mentioned the example with the construction workers of working out is all you needed to do to have an amazing looking body, amazing metabolic health, and to be very lean. Construction workers would be the Olympians of our day, but you can kind of see going past any construction zone, pretty much most of them are quite overweight. So clearly, exercise isn't the defining variable, although I would definitely recommend that you include it. But it is not necessary to lose weight at all. Okay. So the second myth here kind of goes into, if you do work out, you need to do like high intensity training, like CrossFit, like jump over here, do this, jump over there, do this, jump over there with no rest, etc., etc. And again, that can't be furthest from the truth. And if anything, most people are in already a heightened state of adrenal fatigue. So by having them do high intensity training, it's just going to shoot their cortisol through the roof even more and cause them to burn out even more. Like the people that should definitely be staying away from high intensity. I don't even do high intensity training, okay? And you don't have to do high intensity training. In fact, the most ideal form of training, especially to improve your body aesthetically, is weightlifting with really long breaks in between sets. I'm talking about like 2 to 4 minute breaks in between sets. When you're kind of jumping from exercise to exercise, not only does that increase your chance of injury because you go into the next set already in an exhausted state, but it also, that's not the way you become strong. That's not the way you make your muscle bigger. And that's not the way you do things safely as well. Because obviously in a state of fatigue, you're going to have trouble either keeping your core engaged, also keeping your muscle under continuous tension. And that's very important as well, because if you don't keep that strain in the targeted muscle under continuous tension with load, what happens is then the loads go to your joints. And that is a good way to develop arthritis over time and also injuries as well. Okay, so high intensity training, I would say, is it's very marketable. People think it's very productive because they're kind of very tired and exhausted at the end of the workout, but it's counterproductive in like 99% of cases. Anyone you see that's marketing that type of training style that has a really good physique with really good muscle density, they're not doing that style of training most of the year. Most of the year, they're just doing either powerlifting or hypertrophy training, like bodybuilding, for example. And they're most often just on a lot of drugs. And that's really how they're developing the muscle density. But that form of training does not produce any powerlifting champions, does not produce any bodybuilding champions, increases chance of injury through the roof. It's extremely exhausting on the central nervous system. And it's taxing on the central nervous system, but not that taxing on the muscle tissue. So it's it's not functional either. A lot of people are like, oh, it's functional, but nowhere in life out in nature do you grab anything with a bar. And that completely changes the dynamic of how your central nervous system reacts to a load. Like, I'm sure many of you can probably deadlift 135 pounds, which is a bar with a plate on each side for quite a few reps. But go out in nature and try to lift a 135-pound rock. And you can see just by the change of the grip, how that changes the way your central nervous system reacts to the load. Because inevitably, the purpose of the central nervous system is just to get you to survive better in the external world. So it does that, and to do that properly, you need to expose it to what you're trying to get good at, all the intricate details. So if you're trying to be a functional athlete, you should be out trying to be functional in the specific activity you're actually trying to get good at, whatever that may be. If it's mountain climbing, you need to be mountain climbing. If it's picking up heavy rocks outside, you need to be picking up heavy rocks outside. If it's like MMA training, you need to be doing that, So your central nervous system gets used to exactly what it's exposed to, because that's its job, to get you to adapt and survive better in the external world. And people oftentimes confuse one dimension with another. They're like, well, I could kind of deadlift here and I can do pull-ups here in this controlled environment in a gym, so I should be able to do this in the external world. But it's not the case. Okay, so when you're trying to optimize your training, you need to be crystal clear about your goals, obviously, and then you need to expose your central nervous system to those particular goals. And if it's in terms of functional training, the gym should just be a supplement to your overall training protocol. And it will probably be a good idea to do a lot of integrative exercises unless there's a real like lagging muscle group, because inevitably your body should be seen as, in that situation, as one huge muscle group. You know what I mean? Because it requires every single muscle to pick something off the ground. It requires every single muscle to be able to get you to even walk, do something as basic as walk outside, etc., etc. So myth number one, you need to work out to lose weight. Totally not true. You do not need to work out at all to lose weight. I gave the example of the construction workers that do work out all the time and they're still overweight. And also the example of the gym goers that you see there for 2-3 hours a day for the last 5 years and they're still overweight, you know? So working out is the least important part of a fat loss journey. Least important part. Should you include it? For sure. But again, you know, put your energy where you're going to get the most results out of. And a lot of people put way too much emphasis on the actual training. And the second myth is you need to do like high intensity training. This is totally not true. It's counterproductive. If you look at my website, I have like a myriad of testimonials. A few of my clients are even on this call here, all with great results. No high intensity training at all. Okay. And in fact, you only have to really work out like 4 days a week. And as long as your program is really structured well, that is really all you need to do for 45 minutes a day. That's exactly what I do. And no joint pain, you know, staying very lean all year round, very good muscle to fat ratio, very good metabolic health markers, very good hormonal panel as well, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. And high intensity training also puts a lot of wear and tear on your joints. And it's not functional either. Nowhere in life do you grip something by like a handle or a bar. And when you just change that small dynamic, it changes the way your central nervous system reacts to the load completely. And you've seen this many times, like people that are really strong in the gym, you take them out into the real world, all of a sudden they lose pretty much all of their strength, okay? So it's important to kind of expose your central nervous system to the specific activities that you're trying to get better at, because a lot of people get it confused, like, oh, I'm good here, you know, I can deadlift 135 pounds here, so that means I can go out in nature and lift a 135-pound rock. Not the case, okay? Never going to happen. Two different activities. The third, I'm kind of looking at my list here, the third myth of fat loss is you have to do cardio. Again, you do not even have to work out. You do not have to do high intensity training. In fact, I would encourage you guys to not do high intensity training and take super long breaks in between your sets. I'm talking about 2 to 4 minutes in between sets, minimum, okay? Like minimum. That's the only way you're going to get stronger. That's the only way you're going to build biological resilience and or biological adaptation. And that's how you're going to keep the lift safe, because if you just jump into the next movements right away, you risk going into that next set fatigued already. And thus you're going to create more micro movements under load. Everyone has done this before. You know, micro movements are like, for example, when you're bench pressing and all of a sudden you kind of start distorting your body, you know what I mean, to kind of finish off that lift. It's those micro movements where you lose tension and start distorting your body. That's where the injuries happen. And those are going to happen left and right when you're doing this high intensity kind of training of jump over here, jump over there, blah, blah, blah. Again, no powerlifting champions train that way. No bodybuilding champions train that way. No Olympic lifting champions train that way, okay? And it's not applicable, again, it's not functional or applicable to the real world, all right? Like I mentioned, just from that, there's a long conversation with this, but just from that literal example of like, there's nothing in the world where you grab with a freaking grip. And most people's functional activity is like sitting at a desk, okay? And you don't need to destroy your body and put that wear and tear on your body during that high intensity training to sit at a desk. It's too much risk, very little reward. You're not going to build like a very beautiful body doing that kind of training. And anyone you see with a good looking body doing that type of training already probably had that muscle development through doing powerlifting or bodybuilding type of routines. And then they transition into that type of training, or they're just doing a lot of drugs. And a lot of people, pretty much all of these health influencers online are doing some kind of steroids, behind the scenes or openly. And that's how they're developing the muscle density, not through their training. And in fact, I would even 100% guarantee they would have even a way better looking physique if they just stopped this high intensity training nonsense. So 3 myths. You don't have to work out. Myth number 1, you do not have to work out to lose weight. Myth number 2, you definitely do not need to do high intensity training to lose weight. And I would, in fact, recommend that you don't do high intensity training. Your joints will thank you long term, trust me, and your adrenal glands. You do not need to do cardio for sure to lose weight. And in fact, a lot of people are already in a deficit in their muscle mass, so they don't have that much muscle, and they have a poor muscle to fat ratio. So a lot of people are either like very overweight, overtly overweight, or kind of they're in that category of skinny fat, and which is still overweight. They're at least like 20% body fat. Some people are like obese and they may look actually skinny with clothing on, So the average American right now is about average American male, 28% body fat, which is obese. 20% is overweight for males, 25% is obese, and 35% is morbidly obese. Okay, so 28% is the average, which is only 7 percentage points, not that much away from being morbidly obese, and that's like the bulk majority of American males right now. So by doing cardio and by not emphasizing weightlifting as your primary source of exercise, you'll just be depleting your muscle mass even more. And in fact, people are way too heavy to be doing cardio anyways. And it's nauseating when you're that heavy to have to run and you don't have to. And that kind of could discourage a lot of people from going on their journey because it's just too hard. If you're not like 300 pounds, for example, or 250, let's say you're 200 pounds. If you want to know how a person that's 250 pounds feels when they're running, put on a 50-pound backpack, or how a person that's 300 pounds feels when they're running. In fact, I don't have any of my clients do cardio. At worst, they do like some walking, okay? And if you see coaches online getting their morbidly obese or obese clients doing cardio, this is totally not necessary and it's not good coaching. Their joints cannot take all that rocking, especially their lower extremities like their hips, knees, and ankles. It's not good for them. They should focus on just losing weight, which doesn't require exercise anyways. And then, getting rid of that excess 50 or 100 pounds. And then if they really want to do cardio, if it makes them feel really good, then kind of incorporating some type of cardio, typically, regressing probably to like an elliptical trainer initially for a while to allow some biological adaptation in their lower extremities, and then slowly transition them into actually running outside and stuff of this sort when their body weight is already so much lower. I know it looks so marketable to get clients, to do these beat down workouts with clients and stuff like that, but trust me, it's just gimmicky, markety stuff. It's totally not necessary. It's in fact detrimental and counterproductive. It can cause burnout in the client as well, because it's just too difficult. They're too heavy, and that way they already probably feel incapable. And then when you get them to do something like run with 100 extra pounds on their frame, which is literally impossible to do, they're going to feel even more discouraged, So you have to take into consideration the person's physiology, obviously, right? But their psychology too. So imagine again, I ask you to put on a 100-pound backpack and go for like a hike with a steep incline. Dude, like 2 minutes into it, you can be in really good shape and you're going to be your lungs are going to be on fire. Your legs are going to be smoked already. And, you're already in good shape, so you already have the psychology of being more athletic, but these people don't even have that psychology to fall back on. So it's terrible coaching. Shouldn't be done. And when I see it online, I see a lot of people cheering in the comment section, but it's because people are so lost in terms of what needs to be done to actually achieve optimum health. And beat down workouts, trust me, don't do them. Waste of time, taxing your adrenal glands way too much, not going to build that aesthetic physique you think it is. And again, risk of injuries is super, super high, and wear and tear on your joints is super high too. So you may not feel the consequences now, but in your 40s, 50s, and 60s, for sure you will feel the consequences of those decisions. So trying to save you guys a lot of pain, because it's not necessary to accomplish the goal. Might it accomplish your goal of losing weight? For sure. But is it worth all this cost to benefit? You know what I mean? You have to evaluate that. Like, in something simple. Let's say you want nice glutes or a big butt. You could do squats, although squats are really kind of like a quad exercise until you get into the very lower portions of the actual squat motion, which a lot of people can't even do because of their hip structure. So they end up creating this kind of like butt wink at the very bottom, which puts a gargantuous amount of shear load on those poor discs, particularly the L3, L4, and L5S1. L5S1 being the most commonly injured disc. And you don't feel it in the beginning for sure. Your glutes may actually improve, but 2 years in, you've been doing those squats twice a week for 5 sets per session, all of a sudden you blow out a disc. In fact, I don't know anyone that has been squatting for a long time, back squats and deadlifts, that hasn't had a back injury. So you got to ask yourself, like, yes, can that get me to my goal? Yes. But can other things that are way safer also get me to my goal of having impressive glutes? So what builds really impressive glutes? In short, like a lot of hip flexion and extension. Okay? What exercises can easily accomplish that without putting that load on the back? Well, a lot of exercises. So lunges. You can even do a lunge in a slight deficit, like put a plate, like a 1-inch plate, and get even a little bit more hip flexion as you, progress and improve even more. Step ups, single leg Bulgarian split squats are amazing. Okay. Especially if you like voluntarily flex your glute as hard as you can and kind of try to imagine like that's the only muscle working in that specific lift. And a myriad other movements, okay? But those exercises, it's literally impossible to injure your back. You could even do barbell hip thrusts, although that may be troublesome for people that already have a back injury because it does provide a lot of shear pressure on the back. So you have to be consciously aware that everyone is a little bit different. If they already have an injury history, then it needs to be approached a bit differently than a person that doesn't have injury history, and a bunch of other variables to consider as well, okay? But remember, when selecting an exercise, ask yourself, what is my clear goal here first? And that's the main thing. You got to be crystal clear. So in this easy example, I want bigger glutes. Okay, so I have all these exercises. I can do back squats. I can do deadlifts. Okay, I can do those, but those have a high risk and fairly, in my opinion, good reward, but also high risk. And they're also very taxing on the central nervous system. So if your sleep isn't on point, if you're working a gargantuous amount of hours, if you have even little things like an internal, harsh internal critic, anything that taxes your central nervous system, those exercises will tax your central nervous system even more. So you have to take into consideration that the human body is made of various systems, and how does that particular exercise affect all of those systems, not just the results as well. You got to kind of look at the broader picture, because inevitably you're composed of all these systems, and all these systems are interrelated. They all depend on one another. Like, your digestive, what are you going to do if you don't have your digestive system or hormonal system or central nervous system or muscular system or skeletal system, et cetera, or reproductive system and stuff of that sort. So all of them are interdependent. If you kind of have a deficit in one, like you start developing gut issues, for example, that will have a ripple effect on all of your systems. It's not just localized in one system, because now with gut issues, you have malabsorptions of various nutrients possibly, because maybe you have a bacterial overgrowth that's overeating a certain type of food that's introduced into your body, and thus you can't quite absorb it as well. Now your other systems aren't getting those nutrients that are important to live, etc., etc., etc. So going back here, 3 myths. Myth number 1, you need to work out to lose weight. Totally not true. Myth number 2, you need to do high intensity training. Totally not true, and I would kind of discourage it. Myth number 3, cardio, you need to do it. Totally not true. And I would discourage it, especially on concrete, because that's going to destroy your joints for sure. Definitely don't be running on concrete. If you want to include cardio, I would just include speed walking. That's going to be the best. Okay, speed walking and some kind of form of hiking. Particularly, ideally, if you could also have more of a dynamic environment too, not just walking on straight concrete, but maybe hiking where your ankle twists in different directions, etc., etc., because that's how you build resilient tissue and healthier joints long term, instead of walking on flat surfaces or the treadmill, for example. Myth number 4, you need to do like a special diet, like keto, fasting, maybe the cockroach diet. I don't know what gimmicky nonsense, or the blue zones diet. What gimmicky nonsense is out there these days? Guys, don't fall for these fad diets. They're marketing gimmicks. The only diet that works for you is one that's particularly built out for your personal needs and goals, which change over time. Say you want to be a long distance high endurance athlete, but 5 years goes by, you want to be now a bodybuilder. Dude, nutrition protocols are going to be way different, okay? Compared to even someone that just wants to optimize their digestive health or just their metabolic health or whatever. The only nutrition program, the best nutrition program is one that's built out specifically for you, and it's going to be some type of omnivore diet, some type of omnivore diet for sure. But again, how you structure those nutrients and how you source those macromolecules, it's all going to depend from person to person. The reason these fad diets work is because people are looking for quick fixes. And guys, do not fall for this. Nothing's going to happen quickly. Nothing. Ever. And if all these quick fixes worked, we would all be fixed by now. But at 2025, Americans are the most obese and medically drugged out humans in the history of the human race. And that's because they continue to be fooled by these gimmicky quick fix solutions, which literally never work. They never work. They never work because like the old saying goes, if something is too simple, if something is too good, sounds too good to be true, it's because it is. It's because it is. It's because it's true. And the best you're going to see, sometimes people see some short-term results here and there and they brag about it online, but do a quick 2-year follow-up or 1-year follow-up and I guarantee you they're more obese than ever, and stuff of that sort. So do not fall for like, you got to do keto, there's something special about it. You got to do fasting, there's something special about this diet. The only diet that works is one that's specifically built out for you, and that's it. And if you don't know how to do that, then I would recommend that you take a course in nutrition. You can become your own mechanic. I highly encourage people to do that. Or if you're super busy, you just need to hire a coach and a mentor, and that's it, and have them fast track that process for you. And that's it. Those are your only 2 options. Because if you can, first of all, like when you buy a book in nutrition, even if it's someone credible, like that author has never met you personally. And taking advice from that book, there's a very high chance of you taking that advice out of context, also not knowing how to apply that knowledge with the right intensity at the right time to get the right result. There's the issue too of like when people become overweight, there are a myriad of reasons for this. It's not just a lack of education, although that's a common reason as well. So when they think like all I need to do is just change my diet and my workout and everything will be fine, oftentimes, I mean, this is a little bit of an extreme example, but that's the same as like telling a person with an alcohol problem, like, hey, you just need to stop drinking. It's like, obviously they need to stop drinking. Why didn't they think of this on their own? You know, obviously they need to stop drinking. But there's obviously a lot more going on under the table at the thinking dimension, emotional dimension, spiritual dimension, with their environment, etc., internal and external environment that's leading to that excess weight gain or leading to that alcohol abuse or whatever, stuff of that sort. Okay, guys, my favorite book is George Orwell's. One of my favorite books is, damn it, what's the name of it? It's the farming book, Animal Farm. Okay, guys, I would highly recommend you read it. There's also like 2 movies on it. I would watch the movie because they're super entertaining. But basically, these animals in a farm, they kicked out the farmer and they took over the farm, you know, because they didn't want to be like a servant, basically, to this farmer. And they took over the farm, and eventually a hierarchy formed, and the pigs ended up being kind of the leaders. And in order to kind of brainwash the sheep, the pigs would create these kind of simple slogans. 2 legs bad, 4 legs good. And the sheep would go, 2 legs bad, 4 legs good, you know, and stuff of this sort. And that's exactly what's happening with these fad diets. People are like, vegetables are bad, meat is good. Then another group, meat is bad, vegetables are good. You know what I mean? And then this other group, it's like, just do the Mediterranean diet. I even see medical doctors promoting this. It's like so silly. Don't fall for this, guys. It's like, it's so scammy. It's 2025. We have to build up more conscious awareness about what real healthcare is. Those fad diets, they sell books, and you can go on Amazon and see they have any kind of fad diet has like thousands of reviews, you know? That's because people are still gullible and uneducated in this area and looking for quick fixes. But again, if all those quick fixes worked, we would all be fixed by now. So guys, don't fall for that. You're way better than that. Don't do it. You're totally wasting your time, and it's so silly. It's 2025. We got to grow up. Myth number 5. Myth number 5, when people go on a fat loss journey, I kind of hinted at this before. They're like, oh, I just need to change this one thing and everything will work. I just need to like work out more. I just need to eat a little bit better, or I just need this special one exercise. In reality, guys, when a person becomes overweight, and the more overweight, the more dramatic this is. So when a person's like 30 pounds, there's like 30 pounds in excess weight. There's like a gargantuous amount that's going wrong in their life, in their external and internal environment that needs to be addressed. So oftentimes just the diet and exercise, it's approaching it like not at the right level. Obviously, the symptoms are manifesting at the biological level. There's no doubt about that. The excess weight is at the biological level and all the metabolic issues that go with it. But inevitably, there is some type of also a mind virus that this person is inflicted with that makes it acceptable. Somehow they justify certain behaviors over long periods of time that lead to this excess weight. And it needs to be approached at all of these levels. So like, look at it this way. Excess weight, see excess weight as a symptom. And you got to ask, okay, it's a symptom. It for sure needs to be dealt with. But what causes that symptom? You know, well, we got to look a little bit deeper. What caused that symptom? Well, poor lifestyle and nutritional choices, obviously. The weight just doesn't come from nowhere. And in fact, being overweight costs a lot of time, money, and effort. And it doesn't happen overnight. It takes a long time, it takes a lot of money, and it takes a lot of effort. So it needs to be consciously done. Thus, there needs to be some kind of mind virus, some type of script in this person that's inflicting this person, that's making it acceptable for them to be this way. So then you got to ask yourself, like, why would a person be okay with this kind of self-abuse, right? So you got to go, like, why would they choose poor lifestyle and nutritional choices? Well, a lot of times there are many reasons, and many of these reasons all work in tandem with one another. One is there's definitely a huge lack of education in terms of like what being healthy even means. The other reason is there's something going on in the person's external and internal environment. So with the internal environment, typically what's happening with individuals, especially with recurring weight issues, meaning they actually successfully lose weight at one point, but then regain it at another point to lose it again, and kind of have this cyclical pattern pretty much indefinitely. So what's happening is they most always, and again, it's kind of tough to give advice unless the person is standing literally right in front of you and you hear this story, but most always they have some type of like love-hate relationship for sure. And they have some type of huge story gap in their life. And the story gap, super typical one is, you want to be an artist, but they don't feel safe being an artist because it doesn't pay well or whatever, and they become, I don't know, an MBA and like a warehouse manager, director, which is fine. It's honorable work. It definitely needs to be done in society. But for this particular individual, they wanted to be an artist. So obviously there's a huge story gap. And initially, this story gap will not matter at all. Because they'll be like, well, I'm making a good paycheck, making a difference or whatever. It's consistent. It's a laid out path, etc., etc. But over enough time, inevitably the person knows they're kind of being like fake to themselves. They're being an actor. They want to be an artist, but they're acting like a manufacturing factory director, for example. Okay, so this provides a lot of micro stress on our central nervous system because inevitably you kind of know you're being fake to yourself, and you don't feel safe expressing who you really are. Like this person doesn't feel safe expressing that they're like an artist deep down inside. And they don't feel the world will accept them for that. You know what I mean? Meaning you won't get a paycheck. Maybe you will not be seen as prestigious, et cetera, et cetera. So the world doesn't accept them for who they are. And the world's a funny place because a lot of people tell you like, oh, be yourself. And then you be yourself. And they're like, no, not like that. So there's a lot of layers to this. It's a long conversation. It's something I've been studying actually for quite a long time. But it's not easily summarized in this video here. So inevitably, because they don't feel safe expressing who they are, they kind of seek out food in terms of this discussion. And the food provides that safety, actually. It provides that sense of control where they feel they don't have that in the external world. They feel they don't have the control to express who they are, being an artist. But the food, they can buy whenever they want. They have that control. And the food, it tastes good. It accepts you for who you are. It doesn't ask any questions. It just gives you love and appreciation all the time, which is what anyone basically wants. But the problem is that it's at the wrong level. That's why it's never enough. This is how people become so obese. You know what I mean? They're trying to solve a problem at the thinking and emotional dimension, maybe the spiritual dimension at a biological level, which never works. So, but it does provide some short-term relief. That's where the catch is. You know what I mean? And eventually, they do that for so many years. The average person puts on like 5 pounds of excess weight a year, which doesn't seem like much, but 10 years later, that's 50 pounds. 20 years later, that's 100 pounds. And that's exactly how it happens. And unfortunately, the central nervous system gets used as well to whatever patterns you choose. So if you choose a life of obesity, misery, and disease, it'll kind of adapt at becoming good at that and keeping that status quo. And then typically also there are a bunch of internal scripts that reinforce it and kind of justify it over time as well, which unfortunately keep the person stuck for a long time. Like I mentioned in many of my lives, I mean, you would think age brings wisdom, but totally not the case. I've seen 40, 50, even like recently a 70-year-old that was in the health field for 30 years, health professional. And you guys, most health professionals these days are so sick, even sicker than the patients they train and living just as unsustainable of a lifestyle. And yet somehow people seek out their advice still for health, So age does not bring wisdom, unfortunately. Unfortunately. It's unfortunately the case. So, okay, let's see. Yeah, so in short, myth number 5, I just need to change this one thing. I need to buy this one app and just do the workouts. I need to get on this one diet and just do some blue zone diet or some keto diet or whatever. Not the case, guys. I wish it was that easy, and maybe in 1 out of every few thousand cases it really is that easy, but it's never the case. This is a multi-layered problem, and it needs to be approached at the appropriate levels to see any lasting resolution. And the only fat loss program that works is one where you don't have to do it ever again. That's like key. If you keep doing it again and again and again, it's not working, and you're not meeting the problem at the level of the problem. Okay, cool. Okay, another myth is I can't lose weight because I'm in starvation mode. Okay, so it's 2025. Unfortunately, this one is still around. This one's the dumbest one of them all. There's no such thing. I've even had people tell me like I eat 0 calories, I eat nothing, and I don't lose weight. Well, if that were the case and you ate literally nothing, and you can't lose weight, that's actually like pretty amazing, because you would be the only person on the planet where that is the case. And you can get lost in the forest and you don't have to worry about starving to death because you don't lose weight when you have 0 food. How amazing would that be? Or in fact, you can go a step further. You can just stop buying food altogether because you don't lose weight when you don't eat. You can't starve to death. Imagine how much money and time you would save. Time you would save from cooking, having to go to the grocery store and buy that food. You know what I mean? How much money you would save as well. Dude, you got to take advantage of that. I mean, if you can't lose weight when you're not eating anything, you have to take advantage of that. In reality, guys, this is hocus pocus, delusional thinking, and again, lack of education as well. And I'm not blaming the people. It's just we don't have this education in our school system, unfortunately. No one teaches you this, which is critical to teach a person this, because your mind and your body are just the vehicles for how you experience this external world. And if you don't know how to drive that vehicle, you're going to get in car accidents, you're going to have unnecessary wear and tear, and you're not going to get to where you want to go. And it might be a little bit biased for me to say this, but I think mental and physical health should be everyone's top priority, because no matter your goal in life, whether it's like you want to be a computer programmer, president of a company, or just a Buddhist monk, or whatever, you need your body and mind to do that. And you need it functionally, optimally functioning to accomplish those things. What are you going to accomplish if you have major depression or cancer or severe low back pain or whatever? You're not going to get much done, if anything, So it needs to be your top priority. And the good thing is you actually don't need to do much to optimize those two. I'm not talking about you're going to become an Olympian. You're not. You need to do a lot to reach that level. But for everyday people that just want to look great, feel great, have good metabolic health markers that don't require them to take like a myriad of medical drugs just to kind of get up in the morning and function. Dude, it doesn't require much. It's like 4 45-minute workouts a week, good sleeping patterns, understanding how to source high quality nutrition, maybe studying how to reduce your toxic load and exposure to various industrial and environmental chemicals, etc., and a few other topics. And basically, once you take self-sabotage out of the equation, that's really the bulk of the material. But there's a lot that goes into, I'm not going to discount the knowledge in each individual areas. There's a lot that goes into that as well, each of those individual areas. And they're fascinating to study. And if you guys even pick it up as a hobby, it'll only benefit you. It'll only benefit you. You'll look better. You'll feel better. You won't have any achy joints and stuff of this sort, etc. I mean, come on, it's a win-win, and stuff of that sort. So no such thing as starvation mode. Like, this is the silliest one out of all the myths, I would have to say. Not the case, and just for educational purposes only, look at POW camps, I'm sure not a single overweight person was there. You know what I mean? Or look at tribal societies, not a single overweight person there. You know what I mean? And I'm sure in those POW camps, some of them had quote unquote the fat gene. You know what I mean? But did they leave overweight? No, they didn't. Not a single one. Not a single one. No exceptions. No such thing as starvation mode. So none of that. Another myth is weight gain is a natural, excess weight gain is a natural byproduct of aging. Totally bogus, hocus pocus, okay, for Disneyland movies. This is another silly one. Your actual resting metabolic rate doesn't even change from your 20s through your 60s at all. And in fact, I would argue if you just keep weightlifting, if you keep increasing your muscle mass as you age, if you take care of yourself, in fact, your metabolic rate would improve. You'll burn even more calories. Like right now at 40, I need to just eat 3,000 calories every day just to maintain my body weight. And that's only with working out 4 days a week. If I worked out way more than that, I would need to eat even way more than that. Okay? There are some friends I have that are eating like 4,000 to 5,000 calories a day just to maintain their weight. And they're in their 40s and 50s, you know, stuff of this sort. So again, excess weight gain, not a byproduct of aging. Totally false. Totally false. And it doesn't come on easy or anything of that sort. What's happening really is as people age, they've already had terrible nutrition habits. Even if they think it was good, it's 99% of the time so terrible. Especially if a person is struggling with excess weight and easy stuff like that. I mean, their understanding of nutrition is basically kind of like zero for the most part. Okay. And they had terrible lifestyle habits. And typically what happens is as you age, you also pick up more responsibilities in your life, typically. And those responsibilities take on more and more time. And also they could be quite mentally taxing. So like if you're a manager or above, you know, you might not be able to ever clock out of work technically, because even if you leave work, you're kind of thinking about quota deadlines, et cetera, and your mind is constantly racing, stuff of that sort. And the mind actually consumes a tremendous amount of energy. And if you're constantly using it, it's going to be consuming energy more and more. So responsibilities increase, and because they've had such poor lifestyle habits before, they have a very poor foundation to begin with. So as you start stacking weight, responsibilities on top of that foundation, it crumbles and breaks quickly. And the people become super overweight. And they don't work out at all, so their muscle mass is quite low. And then basically by the time they hit 40, it's not supposed to decline, but because they're so inactive, the decline starts compounding, getting more and more severe with every single year. And the very little muscle they had is gone at that point, and they start looking like a shriveled prune. For you guys that are aesthetically inclined and want to keep looking young into old age, like the only way to keep looking young for your body into old age is to have muscle mass. And that's it. That's it. You don't have like any other choice. Once you start losing that muscle mass, that's when the skin becomes saggy. It becomes easier to gain fat as well, you know, because your base metabolic rate is a lot lower. And you start looking like a shriveled prune. And that's it, you know. And that's what happens. So again, fat, excess weight gain is not a byproduct of aging. Bogus. Ignore it. It's so silly and stupid. Another thing, especially with American culture, unfortunately, there's a huge problem with medical drug dependence. Like literally, most Americans just need medical drugs for literally anything. You got a little headache, you need a medical drug. You got a little inconvenience here, you need a medical drug. Same with excess weight gain. People think they need to take drugs like Ozempic and stuff of this sort to lose weight. Not the case. How have people been? You can look back even before 1960 in the US, it's literally was impossible to find an obese person, okay? The human central nervous system hasn't changed in like 250,000 years at all. like at all. And the physiology it controls hasn't changed either, you know? So how is it for 99% of human existence, we're all like lean, mean, hunter-gathering, fighting machines, etc., but now all of a sudden there's some genetic mutation? No, it's not a genetic mutation. It's the unfortunate truth is um, the human DNA that kind of survive for the most part are ones that were good at hoarding or kind of hoarding calories, basically able to um, store the calories quite easily. You know what I mean? Because out in the wild, you know, you may have a successful hunt one day and then 3 weeks goes by, you got nothing, you know? And calories, your whole entire central nervous system has evolved to get you to survive in the external world. And the main way it does this is by making you efficient at accumulating calories. That's it. It's even developed space and time, the concept of space and time. Space and time is not fundamental. I know a lot of people think it just exists without a central nervous system there to observe it, but it's not the case. Once there's no central nervous system there to observe space-time, it disappears. It's not existent in that case, okay? And space and time evolved to have you be efficient at accumulating calories. So your central nervous system has developed the ability to tell space, like that deer is a mile away versus this deer is a quarter mile away. So it could be efficient at calculating which one is more efficient, which one will take less calories to acquire more calories, which path. Should I go for this deer a quarter mile away or should I go for that deer a mile away? And it's developed the concept of time as well. How much time will it take? So this deer that's a mile away will take more time. This deer that's a quarter mile away will take less time. Okay, so option A, this deer that's a quarter mile away will take it's less space and less time. So thus I can acquire more calories and expand even less calories. There's a really good book. So that's to not go off tangents before I go on this book. I kind of freaking forgot the name of it. I'll try to look it up, but amazing, really entertaining read, and I highly recommend you guys do it, read it. But that's the reason for the evolution of space-time for your central nervous system to actually be able to kind of gauge that. Because remember, the only purpose of your central nervous system is to get you to survive in the external world and nothing else, right? So on this topic, we're gonna do a quick like perpendicular transition here, really quick, or parallel transition. There's a good book called man, I actually have my laptop here and I could look it up on Amazon. But there's a really good book that goes over how humans, the Homo sapien, used the domestication of wolves to be one of the contributing factors to having the Neanderthals go extinct. So as you guys know, we might be the only humans remaining right now, the Homo sapien, but there used to be 28 plus human species that have come and gone over millions of years. And one of the species that were the closest to us were the Neanderthals. They're kind of like in Europe, and the Homo sapien kind of started in Africa and kind of migrated into Europe and then other continents as well, including Asia and stuff of that sort. But basically, the Neanderthals were quite superior in many ways. They're far more muscular, far more athletic. They're also like very, very intelligent as well. They knew how to form like Stone Age weapons, etc., like a spear. But what happened during the Ice Ages, food became more scarce, right? And the Homo sapien, just through probably dumb luck, is just domesticated the wolf. And the wolves usually would hang out at the perimeter of Homo sapien kind of camps because they would get kind of leftover food. But over time, they were able to domesticate these wolves, which became dogs eventually. And we have dogs, obviously, now. Everyone has a dog. And they used these wolves to help them with their hunting pursuits because the wolf would, the pack of wolves would be able to surround the animal they were hunting, and the animal would stop moving. And what the Homo sapien then would do is just go there and just throw a spear at the animal and then kill it quite quickly. So once again, it would expand even less calories because now instead of having to run after this animal for God knows how long, and that would require the expansion of so much calories and also put you in a lot more danger. Now these animals, these wolves, which run way faster than the Homo sapien, can surround this animal. The animal stops moving because it kind of feels threatened from each angle, obviously. And then the Homo sapiens can kind of close in a lot faster and basically kill this animal. And thus, they acquire all of those calories with expanding even less calories. And it's much safer too, because basically the wolves are being put in danger and the Homo sapien is kind of at the periphery, able to throw a spear from a distance and stuff of that sort. Where the main thing with the Neanderthals, their shortcoming was that they never thought of the concept of being able to throw a spear, which was revolutionary back then. They would actually just run up to the animals. They would basically hide in bushes and trees, and as the animal walked by, they would kind of attack these animals. But the animals back then were quite dangerous. Even you try to hunt a lot of the animals these days with a spear, it's still quite dangerous. So they would expand a lot of calories, and on top of that, they would have a high mortality rate because obviously a mammoth, you could do that to a mammoth, that would probably kill a few Neanderthals and stuff of that sort. And on top of that, ironically, their muscle mass is what also contributed to their downfall because they're very, very muscular. And like the average Neanderthal female, according to this book, it's been many, many years since I've read it, needed to consume double cheeseburger for breakfast, lunch, and dinner just to sustain her muscle mass. That kind of calorie range is easy to acquire these days, you know what I mean? But back then it was like quite a bit of food and would require a gargantuous amount of calorie expenditure to be able to acquire those amount of calories. So in a sense, they kind of died out and stuff of that sort over many, many hundreds and thousands of years. And eventually, like I said, there are 28 human species that have come and gone. 28 of them are gone. Some of them were here for a very, very long time, and the Homo sapien has only been here for a very short time. So we'll see what happens. There have been already 5 mass extinctions on this planet that's 4.5 billion years old, where everything got evaporated, And a lot of people predict the 5th mass extinction would happen because of human behavior, either nuclear war or too much pollution or too much depletion of resources or creating imbalances in the ecosystem due to extinctions of various animals and plant life, etc., etc. So point being, that was a huge tangent. I kind of want to, give me one second, guys. I kind of want to find this book. If you guys want to, I think it was called Homo sapiens and their dogs. Oh, here it is. Cool. Okay. It's called, that was quick. It's called The Invaders, How Humans and Their Dogs Drove Neanderthals to Extinction. And the author's name is Pat Shipman. Super entertaining book. I would just read it. It was really, really cool. I enjoyed it a lot. And it kind of goes over the intricate details of how the Homo sapien kind of outcompeted the Neanderthal for resources in Europe. I believe during the Ice Age. I forgot exactly though. So, great read. Another read too is called The Last Ape Standing. I forgot. Let me check out The Last Ape Standing. I think by Chip or something like that. Last Ape. Let's see. Okay, yeah. Last Ape Standing by, let's see, Chip Walter. Another great book, and he talks about how the 28 human species that I'm referencing, each of them, how they went extinct over time, okay? Because a lot of times people are like, well, we're the dominant species here on Earth, we're going to be around forever, but material like this is very humbling. You'll see, there are many human species that have come and gone who says we're going to be around for forever also. So, okay. But anyway, the myth, I need to take fat loss drugs. Guys, that is so stupid. You do not need to take fat loss drugs to lose weight. And in fact, a lot of times people that take these drugs are not meeting the problem at the level of the problem, which is critical to understand because they think their problem is at the biological level because you can see the excess weight either in the lower chest or the midsection or whatever on the body. But the problem most always is at the thinking and emotional dimension. And that one's tough to change most of the time because people don't want to change. But inevitably, you can't solve a problem with the same belief system that led to that exact problem. So you have to change the person that's causing the disease, or the disease persists. All the time, every time, no exception. And then the last one I want to cover before I go, I'm going to go get lunch with the parents right now, is genetics. I'm overweight because I'm genetic, etc., etc. So guys, this isn't the case for any health issues. Maybe one out of every few thousand people, they could really lean heavily on the genetics card. But even in that situation, I would argue that genetics loads the gun for sure. But your decision in life, pull the trigger. So to give you a quick example with me, for example, okay, I had low-grade chronic anxiety. Mainly, I think it formed probably around like mid-high school, and it kind of lasted through mid-college, or maybe even towards the end of college. So I went to the doctors, and they're like, well, here, take this anxiety medication. But luckily, I want to read here what Oscar wrote. You're the best. Thank you for... Yeah, no problem, Oscar. Good to see you as well. Chris, welcome. Lisa, Raul. I saw a bunch of other people jumped in. Carlos. They're like, here, just take this anti-anxiety medication. But, I was kind of raised in more of like holistic circles, my grandma being off-grid in Ukraine, etc., etc. And kind of it didn't sit well with me. I'm like, something's not right there, And I began investing a lot of time into studying the central nervous system. And I learned that with the central nervous system, it's evolved to ideally function with these kind of peak macro stressors, you can call them. So big stressors, like you go hunt a lion, it's stressful, but then huge valleys of nothing going on. So like then you're just chilling out all the time. And this is how the central nervous system functioned for the majority of Homo sapien existence, okay? Even the other 20 human species. There's a hunt, it's kind of stressful sometimes, and then like valleys of literally nothing going on. And that's it, And I was looking at my life and I'm like, man, I got these classes left and right. I was in college at the time. I was working. I already started coaching even back then. I was a full-time athlete as well, and putting a lot of pressure on myself internally through maybe like a harsh internal critic. I also had this delusional kind of like fantasy self that I was comparing myself to, which causes a lot of tension in the central nervous system as well. And a lot of people do this. And the fantasy self is usually kind of like some delusional representation and socially inspired version of who you think you need to be. And then obviously you never match. There's always this kind of discrepancy. And even if coincidentally you do match it from time to time, what ends up happening is then people just kind of quickly raise the bar. So again, you're in this equal deficit and stuff of that sort. So I figured like, hey, what if I just stop, A, overtraining, B, taking on so many different tasks, you know what I mean? And putting so much pressure to succeed, et cetera, in an unsustainable way. And what if I change some internal dialogues, et cetera, I had some social anxiety issues as well, quite a bit. And then I ended up taking like improv and acting classes to help overcome those issues and kind of force myself to socialize more and more and more gradually. The central nervous system, just like muscle tissue, it needs time to adapt. So you got to expose it to a small stressor, then give some break, rest. Then expose it to a little bit more of a heightened version of that same stressor, then give it some break. Expose it, et cetera. And then, 2-3 years later, you look back and you're like, now I can give public speaking in front of huge audiences and totally fine. I don't feel, maybe there's a little bit of, like kind of a waking up feeling initially, like shortly before the speech, but then, you just give the speech and it's normal. And that would have never been the case like 20 years ago. But it takes time to build this biological resilience. But your central nervous system is great at getting you to survive if you just kind of play by the rules of how it's evolved. So the worst possible situation is having a lot of macro stressors in your life, big stressors, and an endless amount of chronic micro stressors, bills, traffic, personal issues, relationship issues, on top of work issues. You know what I mean? Once you get into that kind of situation, it's a disaster across the board. So it's basically, I mean, going back to this, I'm going to close it out. It's not your genetics, guys, and I'm going to close it out here, just kind of quickly concluding here. So here are the big myths. Myth 1, you need to work out to lose weight. You don't need to work out. Myth 2, you need intense CrossFit style training boot camps. No, and I would highly encourage you guys, do not train this way. Your joints will thank you long term, and you'll actually be able to put on muscle if you don't train that way. You need to do cardio. You don't need to do cardio at all, like at all. And in fact, speed walking is far more beneficial for your health and joints than doing actual running. You need a special kind of diet. That's another myth, like keto and fasting. Totally false. The only diet that works is one that's customized and built out to you. That's it. Another myth. You need to just change this one thing and everything will fall into place. Not true at all. Most of the time, people have problems at the thinking dimension, emotional dimension, spiritual dimension, their environment. It's an education issue as well. They just don't know what to do. Their friend circle is terrible. That goes into the environment, you know? If all of your friends are obese and you're trying to be lean, mean, fighting machine, it's stacked against you, you know? Not saying you can't succeed, but that's another huge obstacle to consider. And the thing is, everyone is different. Nature is a novelty generator, right, guys? Not even 2 droplets of water are the same on this planet, or 2 grains of sand. So you can't get these kind of cookie cutter approaches. They're never going to work. And it kind of sucks for some people to hear that because they're looking for a quick fix, but they're going to find out eventually those quick fixes don't work anyways. You know what I mean? So might as well just accept it now and start looking for real answers. Again, all I need to do, another myth, all I need to do is eat better and work out more. On the surface, this may seem like legit advice, but trust me, it's more complicated than this, especially if a person's like 20 plus pounds overweight, let's say 50 pounds overweight. They got like a gargantuous amount of things going on beneath the surface that need to be addressed at many different levels. And by getting them to just say, oh, I just need to work out and eat better without addressing all of these other things, it may provide some results short term, but that's all it's going to do. And the relapse rate is going to basically be like 100% within a 5-year period. If you look up studies on people that approach their weight loss journey from, I just need to work out more, I just need to eat better, and or I just need to take medical drugs like Ozempic, if you do a 2 to 3 year follow-up with that crowd, it's basically 95% relapse rate. What's the point of even trying that? It's a failed system. Starvation mode, another bogus myth. I went into that already. Aging is weight gain is a byproduct of aging. False. Not true at all. Okay, you do not gain weight because you're aging. You need to take medical drugs. Another myth. Not true. Okay. We have Americans are more medically drugged out now than ever before, and the sickest they've ever been. It's a perfect example. It's your genetics. It's not your genetics. Trust me, that's another huge myth. So I hope this helps you guys to save so much time and so much frustration. And I know it's probably hard for you guys with social media these days too, with so much contradicting advice. Go check out my podcast, The 4 Doctors You'll Ever Need. And if you generally master that material, you're solid. That's all you need to focus on. And then self-educate. Become your own mechanic. You know, you got to do it. Your mind and body are so important to you, and you only got one. You know what I mean? And you, whoever that is, whether it's your soul or your observer, whatever you believe, depends on it to experience this external world. So you guys, please don't fall for gimmicky stuff. Fad diets don't work. Medical drugs don't work. Again, Americans are more medically drugged out now than ever, and the sickest they've ever been. Quick fixes don't work, okay? there's a lot that goes into it, all right? And to get real answers, you gotta start investigating all of that stuff and how it plays uniquely into your specific situation, and that's it. So hope this helps, and have a good weekend. Okay, guys, take care.